It's homecoming week for the Colorado Buffaloes. What does a win do for them?
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? This is Locked On Buffs, brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a free 3-week trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We are also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Borbett. Joining me today, Locked On College Football Zone, Spencer McLaughlin. Spencer, thank you for joining us. Let's talk some Colorado football because why wouldn't
let's.
The biggest story in college football, nonstop, 24/7, 25-8, if you will. It just is. And this week, they have a really interesting matchup, right? And we've talked about it a couple times this week, me and you. They're going up against Baylor. Both teams have a very similar path to getting here, right? They beat a FCS program. Then they lose to a Power 5 program, and neither of them looked good. And then they blow out a Group of 5 program. So what does a win for Colorado do here against a Power 5 program and a Baylor team that kind of sort of looks improved?
Yeah, biggest story in college football. Obviously, a couple of teams battling for bowl eligibility in week one of conference play. But I do like Colorado in this spot, and I think a win kind of legitimizes that they can hit that 6-win thresh mark, which I think is kind of your baseline for a successful season. Like, yeah, technically 5 wins would be an upgrade from a year ago, but I think getting to a bowl game is what Colorado fans should define as, hey, this was a good year. This was another step in the right direction. Like, if you get to 5, okay, but if you come up short of that, I feel like it's doable. And this game is a really important one to reaching that particular mark. This is, according to Vegas, kind of a coin flip, go either way game. I think you don't insert yourself squarely into the national landscape, but I think you kind of poke your head out from above the water as a Colorado team is capable of doing. We know they can do more than that. I don't think this win is, oh my gosh, whoa, they beat Utah, they beat Arizona, they beat Oklahoma State. I think they're going to beat 2 of those 3 teams, by the way, and it's not Utah. But I think that for Colorado, it's a win to make people go, okay, that's something. It's not nothing, but it's not everything, but it's certainly something. And so I think for the Buffs, getting to 3-1 is a good place to go. You want to start conference play off with a win. I don't think you're altering or defining Colorado's season in this particular game against Baylor. I do think you're taking a sizable step because I think Baylor's an improved football team. I think they're getting better quarterback play than they had a year ago. I like their offensive coordinator, Jake Spavital, who came over from Cal, did a nice job with the Bears last year. I think he's really changed things, and they look like an improved football team. Now, you could look up at the end of the year, and Baylor might end with only 4 or 5 wins. I don't think that Baylor is nearly as bad of a football team as they were a year ago. That's why the line is close. I do think the Buffs at home ultimately get this done. And I think it's kind of a stabilizer. I think it's a reassuring win for Colorado fans to make them feel, okay, we're not bottoming out here. We're not going with a 3 to 4 win season this year. Like, there is more possible. I think that's what Colorado can prove this week.
Yeah, and I think to add on to that, we've seen Colorado as kind of a ride-the-wave team, right? When they started last season 3-0, they're on top of the world. And then once they started hitting a little adversity, things got tough, and all of a sudden you lose about like 8 of your last 9 or whatever the number was. It was a tough scene, though. But after that Stanford game, I feel like it totally broke this team. So what does this win do for them? Well, I'm not going to go as far as our colleague Drake Toll, host of Locked On Big 12, and say if they lose this game, Coach Prime's getting fired. But I will say if they win,
did he say that?
That's out there on the Twitterverse.
I'm gonna give him a phone call. All right,
it's out there in the Twitterverse, or the Xverse, if you will. But realistically, what does this win do? I think it gives them confidence, right? And I think this team needs more and more confidence to sort of see, like, hey, we beat our rival last week, which, I mean, it's a Group of 5 team, but they beat them convincingly. They were only favored by, it was a touchdown, 7.5, and they beat them by 19. Then they go up against this Baylor team who, to your credit,
hold on. I want to touch on that Colorado State game for a moment, because this has happened twice with Colorado this year. I'm not accusing you of doing this. I'm just saying I see a lot of opinions flying around. Yeah, I see a lot of opinions flying around about Colorado along these lines. You saw this against North Dakota State, and I talked about it on Locked On College Football. You are going to have, whether it's coming from the same individuals or not, you're going to engage with Colorado in this way. They better watch out. They're on upset alert. They could lose the game, and then they win. It's an FCS team. What does that even matter? It's the same thing with Colorado State. You had people on game day picking the Rams to win. Right. They thought there was a legitimate shot. I think there was a legitimate shot. Certainly based on last year's game there was. But Colorado on the road wins by 19 against a team that took them to overtime in their home field a year ago. My take on Colorado all year has been very simple. They're clearly an improved football team, and they're clearly not a Big 12 title contender. And the 2 wins they had this year, I don't know if they win either of those games last year, North Dakota State or Colorado State.
Not North Dakota State, for sure.
Right. And I think that against Nebraska, they showed they're not a Big 12 title contender because championship contenders, they don't typically get blown out. Not typically. So that's that Colorado State game. I was like, everyone just kind of swept it under the rug. Like, yeah, well, it's Colorado State. Are they even good? I'm like, wait, they have the same coach, the same quarterback. They're expected to be a solid team in the Mountain West this year. And I'm supposed to look at that and go, oh, yeah, well, it's just Colorado. Like, this is the most annoying anti-Colorado narrative to me, where you set the expectations as low as you possibly can, and then when Colorado meets them, you just give them no credit. That's the way this goes.
And I did multiple episodes about the same topic because it's really like, it's all backhanded compliments for Colorado all the way. It's going to be the same thing if they beat Baylor. They're going to be like, oh, Baylor's not that good. But
yeah, when I say I'm so ready for it.
Yeah, when I say a statement win, it's not really a statement for the national media, for anyone outside of that building. It's a statement for Colorado, because I think this team, we all forget there's about 50 new players. These guys are all still getting used to playing together. They're getting used to being a team. So they need to feel that experience of like, hey, we just won 2 in a row against 2 teams that people thought could beat us, right? And that's a feeling it's hard to quantify that, right? You can't really be like, oh, well, they only did this or that. Like, winning together against 2 teams that people think you're going to lose to is a big deal, especially when you looked as poorly as you did against Nebraska. So I think it's kind of a statement win for Colorado's building. I think, like you mentioned earlier, though, everyone else is going to be like, well, it's Baylor. Dave Aranda's going to get fired this year, which, I mean, so let's just diminish everything that Colorado
does. He's on the hot seat. He isn't any good. Look, he might be on the hot seat. He might not be any good. Bottom line, there's still a 1.5 point spread. Vegas doesn't think that this should be a blowout. If Colorado wins this game by 10 to 14 points, I'm going to look at it the same way I saw the other ones. And by the way, I think they're going to win the game by around 10 points. Okay. And guess what? Not everybody, some people, it's me, are 3-0 picking Colorado games this year.
I'm 2-1. I'm 2-1.
I'm pulling for the Buffs hard because 4-0, and I can say whatever I want about the Buffs. That's the way it goes. I could say whatever I want. I could say No one has been as accurate. I'm 2-1 against the spread, picking Colorado. I think they win and cover this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, to win, they basically have to. I guess they don't have to cover, but at this one,
don't have to.
Right. At this one, it's pretty close. So also the Colorado State game, I wanted to dabble in this before we moved on. Shedeur Sanders doesn't shake his hand. Totally okay, right? You can't run your mouth all week and last year and then just expect to be best friends after the game. Am I wrong or am I right or am I right?
Everybody doesn't need to be best friends. It's okay. We don't need to make things personal. You don't need to make there are lines you don't cross. I don't think any lines have been crossed here. Fowler Nicolosi clearly doesn't like Shedeur. I don't think Shedeur likes him very much. Fine. But that doesn't change my opinion of Shedeur Sanders.
Exactly. When I saw people getting so upset, I'm like, first of all, they said they should have murdered them last year in a game they lost. I was like, that doesn't make sense to me. And then Fowler calling Travis Hunter too small. Like, I've said this on my show a couple times this week.
That was wild.
They're not going to go out and get drinks together. I think we could all sort of piece that together. They're not going to be hitting the downtown together. It's okay. I promise you, it's okay for people to not like one another. Me and Spencer don't like one another, and we're cordial. You know. When we come back, we're going to be talking about who
I'm only here because Kevin paid me.
Right. It's a very expensive fee. We're going to be talking about who we actually like in this upcoming game. But first, a quick word from our sponsors over at eBay Motors. This episode of Locked on Buffs is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit. It's only available to U.S. customers. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Joining me, Spencer McLaughlin, Locked On College Football, formerly known as Locked On Pac-12, which
RIP.
Making a comeback, low-key. Let's talk about who we like in this game. It's a weird matchup. We talked about it a little bit already. Very similar paths to get here. Biggest difference between the two teams is Colorado has a lot of star power. Baylor has little to no star power, I would say, at this point in time. They also have one of the most robotic coaches I've ever seen, and Colorado has one of the most exciting coaches I've ever seen. So really a tale of two teams. Who do you like in this game and why?
I like Colorado because I know who's going to play quarterback. And for Baylor, I presume they're going to play both. DeQuan Finn had 2 picks in the first game and then wasn't very good in the second game, so they brought in Sawyer Robertson, and it's like, if you're undergoing quarterback turmoil, I have the same opinion about Michigan and USC this weekend, by the way.
What's the saying? Give us the saying. Give it to us.
If you have 2 quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks.
Yes.
I can't stand a 2-quarterback system. And look, it's not by design. I think they wanted DeQuan Finn to be the starter. He was not producing a high level. He'll play in all likelihood on Saturday. We'll see how much. We'll see if he can find his footing against this Buffs defense, which I think has been much better than it was a season ago, though still there's room to improve. I think for Baylor in this game, if you're same thing I feel with Michigan, if you're undergoing quarterback debates, quarterback issues, to win a football game against a competent or an above average team, you better have an overwhelmingly good roster that can carry whatever you get from the quarterback position. Does anybody in this game feel like Baylor has a roster that is so above and beyond Colorado's, if at all, mind you, but that it's just such a huge gap that Michigan's going back and forth with quarterbacks? You know who they've beaten this year? Fresno State and Arkansas State, who they have much more talent than. They're putting more NFL bodies on the field, even after they lost a bunch of guys to the draft a season ago. But notice what happened when Michigan came to town, or when Texas came to town to play Michigan. There was a clear gap. It's like Davis Warren is over here and Quinn Ewers is over there. Well, you're going to have whoever's playing for Baylor over here, and you're going to have Shedeur Sanders over there, and he's at home. So you're going to go back and forth with quarterbacks with different cadences and different feels in the huddle and different styles of play in front of, how many does Folsom Field hold?
That's a good question. I think it's like a 50-ish, right? That sounds about right. I don't know.
Yeah, in front of, you're going to have a capacity crowd. You're going to have a capacity crowd or close to it. I just have no trust in Baylor's ability to get enough out of the quarterback position. And I think Baylor's defense, they look better than last year. Certainly last time out against Air Force, they played really, really well. But Air Force was running the triple option, and Shedeur Sanders is going to put it up. He's got a bunch of really good receivers. Travis Hunter and Jimmy Horn, I think, have been phenomenal, and they're not the only guys that have shown out this year. Would I like to see Colorado run the football? Yeah, for sure. That's something that the Buffs, I think, need to be able to establish against a team like Baylor, or else how are you going to do it against a Utah and Arizona and Oklahoma? Well, Arizona might not be that hard, or in Oklahoma State. But I think that's why I have so much confidence in the Buffs. If this game were in Waco, I'd give Baylor a better chance. I'd still probably pick the Buffs because I don't love back and forth quarterback play when it's that mediocre. Which is frankly being nice. And I've got Shedeur Sanders on the other side. So that's the biggest reason why I like the Buffs at home.
Yeah, it's a lot of great points. I'm going with the defense here, though. You kind of mentioned the 2-quarterback system.
Colorado, known for their defensive prowess over the last 2 years.
Hey, they've only given up 12 second-half points all season long. So
it's very true. Like I said, it's an improved unit.
And I challenged them, and I'm sure Locked On, they're dialed in, of course. I was like, hey, that performance we saw against Nebraska in the second half, where you gave up 0 points after giving up 21 in the first half, let's see that again. Let's see that for an entire game. And so what do they do against Colorado State? They force 4 turnovers against an offense that's very pass happy. It's an offense that's aggressive. Whether they're good or not, up for debate, but they are aggressive. And I liked what I saw from the defense. And I need to see this defense get to the quarterbacks. If they do go 2-quarterback system, I imagine it's going to be like Michigan, where when Alex Orji came into the game, at least this is how they used him against Texas, he was running the ball. I imagine DeQuan Finn, who has shown little to no ability to beat teams with his arm, when he comes in the game, or if he comes in the game, it's probably going to be in some sort of run capacity. So I expect Colorado's this defense as a whole to really key in on Sawyer Robinson and DeQuan Finn. And we have not seen Sawyer Robinson ever be the reason that a team has won a game, right? I went through all of his numbers last year on an episode earlier this week, Spencer, and someone was like, in the comments, they're like, he didn't have enough experience, right? You can't base it off that. And I was like, well, for Sawyer Robinson, really, we can only base it off of him not being the most experienced guy last year, or him tearing apart an Air Force team who's probably going to be about at the bottom of the the Mountain West this season. So not a lot to go off of on young Mr. Sawyer, but I do think that this Colorado defense, much improved, like you said. I think they're tenacious, and their corners, I mean, I think we're seeing them hit a new level, which is scary when you have Travis Hunter out there, and the corners as a whole are hitting a new level. And then the offense, I'm kind of hoping to see more from them. I would like to see more from Shedeur early, because I do not love their slow starts. Let's go a little hypothetical here, Spencer. Colorado starts the game slow. 2 out of their 3 games this year.
Before we get into that, I just want to put an exclamation point on what you're saying about the defensive improvement.
Yeah.
The total, Vegas, I think, is seeing what you're highlighting about both defenses being better, including Colorado's. The total on this game is 51.5.
Yeah.
If that's so low.
That's
now, part
20s.
of that,
expecting 20s, right?
Yeah. Part of that is that Baylor's offense isn't expected to be great. You know, the one Power 4 team they played this year, they only put up 12 points, I think it was. Now, granted, that was against Utah, and Utah has a much better defense than Colorado, because they're always one of the best defenses in the country. But I would have expected this total to be closer, at least in the high 50s. But that it's 51.5 means Vegas has some confidence. That's the sort of low number where it surprises me, and I go, I think that means the under is going to hit here. And I think Colorado is going to win. I think they're going to cover, and I think that's going to be I think that's going to be an under. I think there will be more defense played in this game than you would think.
Yeah. I think the under scares me. I'm leaning under, but here's what scares me about Baylor if I'm a gambler, right? Baylor's pass defense is ranked first in the nation right now. But they've also played Abilene Christian, who's not as good as Baylor, obviously. They got demolished.
Texas Tech disagrees. Texas Tech thinks they're a darn good football team.
Yeah, that's true. Very, very good. Then they play Utah, right? And as soon as Cam Rising left that game, Utah was a different team with Isaac Wilson, so there was not much passing there. And then they play Air Force, who literally doesn't throw the ball. I think they've only faced 45 passing attempts all season long, and Colorado very well might throw the ball 50 times in this game. So it's a very, very weird slope to go down with this Baylor defense. Let's go hypothetical season right here, Spencer. If Colorado starts this game slow, because 2 out of the 3 games this year, they've gone 3 and out to open the game on offense. Does that affect them winning the game, or do you think they kind of get it out? So let's pull it out. Let's see. What do you think?
Yeah, I think they're able to get it done. By the way, they've faced, it looks like 20, I think they've allowed 21 receptions all year. Tarleton had 7 receptions for 80 yards in week 1. Utah had 12 for 122, Air Force 2 for 25.
For reference, Travis Hunter had 13 by himself last week.
Yeah, I think Colorado is on pace to complete more passes in this game than has been completed against Baylor's defense the entire season. If you could find that prop bet somewhere, I'd take that over, because that number is 21. I bet Shedeur is in the 25 to 30 range. That'd be my expectation. So I can see Colorado starting slow, because it's all I've really seen from the Buffs so far. You know, they got off to a good start against North Dakota State, but last couple of weeks hasn't been a sparkling beginning to the football game on offense. I think if Colorado runs the ball even just a little bit, this game is over. This game is absolutely over if Colorado is able to run the ball. So I think for the Buffs, they probably come out, if you get any kind of points on your first possession, touchdown or field goal, I think that'd be great. But the more that Colorado can turn this game into a shootout, the better I feel about them winning. I don't trust Baylor's offense. I think Dave Aranda wants to muck this thing up. I think he wants to make it ugly. I think he wants to make it sloppy. I think he wants to run the ball. I think he wants to control the clock, because he's got to know hey, we can't go toe-to-toe. We can't have a 34-31 game. That's not going to happen. If Colorado puts up 30 points, 100% guarantee they win the game. No way Baylor's going in with a quarterback controversy and scoring 30. They get 27, they get 24, they're not getting 30. So I think that's the benchmark for Colorado is, can you establish enough of a run to make them sit on it a little bit to open up passing lanes? And if you do, ball game.
Yeah, and that number 30 is interesting because obviously they're 1-0 this year when they hit 30. Last year they were, let's see, 2-0, 3-0, 4-0. Yeah, all of their wins they've scored more than 30 outside of the North Dakota State win. So it's clearly you got to hit 30 kind of team for Colorado. They did hit 30 a couple times and lose last year, but they're very much an offensive-oriented team.
And I think they can, because Utah's passing offense with Cam Rising and those weapons, I think, is on par with Colorado and Shedeur Sanders. I mean, Colorado's might be a touch higher because I think Shedeur's a more talented quarterback than Cam Rising.
Yeah.
But Utah's got real weapons, and Cam Rising's a good quarterback. At the very least, they're in the same category. And to your point, in that game before Cam Rising got hurt, they were moving the ball just fine. And so if they can do it, I think Colorado can too.
Yeah, I think, not to go toe for toe or compare pennies here, but I think Colorado's receivers are probably more dynamic than Utah's, right? So just get the ball in their hands, let them cook this defense, and it'll be okay. When we come back, we're going to go around the Big 12, talk about the disaster that is the conference. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to say who's going to win, who's going to lose, and we're going to talk about everything in between. But first, a word from our favorite sponsors over at FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3 free-week trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. Little mouthful there. All you need is a Google account, a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. So just visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. Okay, Spencer, we've talked about it a little bit. The Big 12, it's a very, very close conference. You join us every Thursday, I believe is when it airs, on the Big 12 little shenanigans thing that we do. And
the squad, the Big 12 squad. I actually wasn't there this week. I had a game to call when we recorded.
Neither was I, yeah, unfortunately. Usually I'm the center of a lot of questions and criticism, so I know everyone missed my presence.
As the Colorado guy? Wonder.
No, I usually just sit in the corner quietly, twiddle my thumbs. We're going to talk about the rest of the Big 12. I think it's a very, very tight conference. It wouldn't surprise me if we're 6 weeks into the season and there's a lot of teams that have a chance still, or 7 weeks or whatever that number is. So we're just going to go from top to bottom and just sort of predict our winners. So let's start with the very first game on the docket, Houston at Cincinnati. Bottom of the barrel teams here. I'm going with Cincinnati. I just think they're less bottom of the barrel.
In no world, in a Power 4 matchup, will I pick Houston in a football game this year. Will not do it. And I'm not doing it here. Cincinnati.
Cincinnati. Okay, let's go to the battle of two teams who thought they'd be. Kansas visiting West Virginia. I trust West Virginia a little more. Jalen Daniels, I think, is, I don't say he's like regressed or bad.
He's off. He's off.
I don't like what I'm seeing from him.
No, I hate what I'm seeing from him. I loved Kansas. They were my pick before the season to make the Big 12 championship game. And it turns out I underestimated the loss of offensive coordinator Andy Kotelnicki. And the loser of this game, your season is basically toast. The winner of this game, hope is alive. You need to start turning it around, though. I'll go with the Mountaineers at home to get this one done.
That'll make Mountaineer Paul very happy. Let's go over to Ames. They're hosting Arkansas State, a tough Arkansas State team, mind you. I'm going with Iowa State. I feel like this feels like a typical Iowa State team where we're not going to hear about them until it's October. And it's like, oh, shoot, they are in second place in the Big 12.
That is if you didn't watch the Cy-Hawk Bowl, which I absolutely did. It was an incredible football game. And yeah, Iowa State with Rocco Beck, they've been getting it done. And I don't think they stumble at home here to Arkansas State. The Red Wolves are solid. I believe that is the current head coaching destination of one Butch Jones. Am I wrong on that?
I think you're correct. I believe.
I think I whipped out a little bit of sicko college football knowledge there.
Yeah, I think Butch Jones is in fact the coach there. I'll give you a little quick Google fact check right there. Yeah, currently the head coach at Arkansas State University. Yeah, Butch Jones, nice little buzz cut. He's doing good. Going up against Rocco Becht, who may have some of the best hair in college football.
He could.
Quite the flow on the
it's
young
not
man.
as good as mine, but it's close.
Yeah, not all of us can aspire to. We can't all reach that level of success in the hair industry. We're gonna go on over to Lubbock in a matchup that this one tickles my fancy. Right? Okay, This is Arizona State, who I think is very underrated. I like what Kenny Dillingham's doing. Taking on Texas Tech, who I genuinely, each week I watch them, I get more and more confused by them. Right? They go to overtime with that very good Abilene Christian team. Then they get blown out by the forgotten Pac-12 team, Washington State, or Pac-2 team. And then it's like, okay, North Texas will upset them for sure, right? And they hang 66 on them. So I have trust them little to nothing, and I like Arizona State a lot.
Yeah, I'm going Texas Tech here. I think they are starting to figure it out. And back-to-back home games, so, staying in the routine, waking up in their own beds, not having to travel. I think the offense has been good from the jump, barring the Washington State game, or except for the Washington State game. And I think that Texas Tech at home gets this one done. Arizona State's played a couple of close games against Mississippi State that wasn't as close as the score indicated, in Texas State, and they've ended up winning. I think this is a really, really fun competitive football game. I love what Dillingham's doing. Liked them before the year. I thought it was blasphemy to pick them last in the Big 12. They will not finish there, but I think they'll lose this one in Lubbock.
Yeah, it's going to be a great game. That's the game you want to circle right there. That game deserves a screen. If you have a multi-screen setup, that deserves a TV screen, I think.
You know what's fun about this week, Kevin, real quick, is there are teams who are feeling really good or feeling really bad based on the non-conference slate. Nothing, and I mean nothing, has been decided in the conference championship hunt. Yeah. Nothing is over. Nothing is out of reach. It's all there. So Texas Tech, seen as a dark horse Big 12 title contender, can still get there if they figure out their defense.
A frisky West Virginia team could end up being a playoff team, right? that's how the new playoffs.
That's how the playoff works.
That's how the playoff works now these days. That's what they're telling me. So the next game we talked about a little bit earlier, Utah, Oklahoma State. I'm a little worried about this one, right? It was Utah. Utah was favored when we did your show, and now Oklahoma State's favored by 2.5, which indicates something's wrong with Cam Rising. I'm out on 19th year quarterback Alan Bowman, in on 19th year Cam Rising.
That's the Big 12's leading passer to you.
That's true. That is true. That is.
Yeah, no, I was not particularly high on him coming into the year. I think his run comes to an end eventually, but here's the thing. If Cam Rising plays, Utah wins. Cam Rising does not play, Utah does not win. It is that simple. Yeah. That's my prediction. That's my prediction. I'll
piggyback that. I'm gonna kind of back off mine and I was Utah regardless, but Isaac Wilson, he worried me.
That's a true freshman, man. That is a true freshman.
True freshman. If this game was in Salt Lake City, I'd feel more confident riding with him, but it's not. It's going to be in Stillwater, so tough one. But like Spencer said, whoever starts a quarterback for Utah will determine if they win or not. Let's go on over to Dallas, where I think I saw the Dallas mayor wearing a t-shirt that said TCU sucks, right?
Because TCU canceled the series after 25. He wanted to continue it now that they're in the ACC. And frankly, I'm with the mayor on this one. I'm not anti-TCU here, but why aren't you playing that game? It's down the road. I love the regionality. It's a big-time matchup now. Yeah. However, business is business, and TCU is a better football team. I think they bounced back after that disappointing home loss against UCF last week, and I think they go into Dallas and get the win. I'll take the Horned Frogs.
Yeah, give me the TCU Horned Frogs winning the Iron Skillet is what it was called.
The Iron Skillet. God, that's good. That's so good.
Right there. Josh Hoover is low-key a gunslinger.
Low-key? Have you watched him play football? Hey, listen up, folks. If you haven't watched Josh Hoover play football,
week 1 against Stanford,
that guy's good. That guy is a good quarterback.
He's the best gunslinger you've never heard of. I'll tell you.
Over 1,000 yards passing through 3 games and 0 interceptions.
8 touchdowns.
Yep.
Meanwhile, which just goes into my pick, I don't trust SMU's quarterback situation, nor do I understand it. I thought Preston Stone was by far one of the better quarterbacks, at least at the Group of 5 level last year.
He was
great. I thought he would be really good this year, and apparently his own team doesn't think so. So every time I watch the SMU game, the announcers they clearly aren't playing for him. Like the team's not in it for him. And I'm like, why? Like, what do I miss?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's happening there. But guess what? We're talking about Baylor and the 2 quarterback situation. SMU's had that too. You know what SMU is so far? A disappointment.
And they're not going to have an iron skill, I can tell you that. To conclude the night, we have Kansas State, number 13, visiting BYU in Provo, Utah. And I'm going Kansas State here, but I'm not going to pretend like this is going to be a blowout win. I think this is going to be a very uncomfortable win for Kansas State.
I completely agree. I think BYU covers that 6.5. This is like a 24-20 sort of ball game.
Yeah.
But when Kansas State needs a first down, Avery Johnson's going to make a play with his legs. Maybe he makes a throw, but in all likelihood, you better rush with tremendous discipline or he is going to Lamar Jackson you to death. And I think BYU, one of the most surprising teams in all of college football this year with the way that they have played. And look, they got a chance to prove it, that they're more than just a surprise, fun story. They can prove they're a good team. Kansas State is better, though. I think they go into Provo and get the win.
Yeah, Kansas State's probably got one of the most electric backfields in all of college football, featuring former Buff Dylan Edwards. It's going to be a great slate. If you guys didn't already get this earlier in the episode, we both think Colorado beats Baylor. Does that change if it rains for you? For me, it doesn't, because I don't think Baylor...
Barring a torrential downpour, no.
Okay, so we both got Colorado winning. I think this is going to be somewhat of a statement game for Colorado, possibly, before they head into a really tough slate of college football, which we'll certainly be talking about with Spencer. Spencer, tell the people where they can find you, what you're working on before we head out.
Yeah, I'm hosting Locked On College Football, giving you the biggest stories in the greatest sport on planet Earth, Monday through Friday, and bonus episodes on Saturday and Sunday as well, on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to know anything about Oregon, which is not Colorado's conference anymore, I host Locked On Ducks in the same spots. But Kevin, it is always fun, and I'm ready for another week of football.
Let's do it, baby. This has been Locked On Buffs. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, share this with a friend, your dog, your mom. I don't care. Share it with someone. Let's have some fun. We'll see you guys after the game on Saturday.